All right. What is going on, everybody out in the TTC? Hope everybody's having good weeks, and especially since everyone's favorite week is coming up. Week after Saturday is Rivalry Week, and that's why we're all on here. It's what we look forward to the most. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started because, as far as I know, there haven't been any Palmetto Week videos made so far. So I'll be glad to send out the first salvo. And of course, we got Clemson, who's not as well represented, at least in terms of numbers of talkers on here, same as we are. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with everybody, but several people that I've looked forward to seeing videos from and debating with have not been on, especially Striped Assassin and Clemson Chris B. I was very much looking forward to going back and forth with both of y'all. So, hopefully sometime between now and the 29th, y'all will have some time to make some videos. Like I said, I have been looking forward to going back and forth with y'all. But we got Clemson in our rivalry week, of course, who's blowing out of proportion everything they've done this year, as they always do. They're making a big deal about only being 7-3, Yes, that's better than us, record-wise. But again, like it always is, and especially on for Clemson's defense, it's a product of playing a pretty pathetic schedule and numbers being inflated there because. And I'm not saying Clemson's defense isn't better than it has been. Yes, it is. But stats are stats, and y'all have been playing some pretty lame competition, and that's inflating your numbers. And that's just a fact. So, let's go ahead and look at numbers. And as much as y'all hate to do that, because it might involve thinking, that's not a good thing for y'all. But in the victories that y'all have had this year, that vaulted defense that y'all just love to just blow your cocksuckers about, has played one Division II team, and in all those victories, the offenses that played against this supposed defense ranked 80th in the country in total offense. So that's all your victories against, on average, the 80th. That includes Wake Forest, the worst offense in the country. Literally, number 125 out of 125. And they dropped 20 on you. Not that that's particularly impressive, scored 20 points, but they're the worst offense in the country. Let's see, you also have another bottom 100 in Syracuse, 103rd. Granted, they only scored 6 points. That's pretty good. So, y'all have had moments. I'm not going to dispute that. But, see, who else you got? You got BC, 64th. Let's see, Louisville, 72nd. NC State, y'all just shut them out. I'll give you props for that. They were 66th. So, that's marginal. They're not great, but still, shutting out an opponent is an impressive thing. So, I'll give y'all that. I'm not going to come on here and just make a bunch of biased nonsense. But still, the fact remains, teams y'all beaten average 80th in the country on offense. So, the teams y'all facing are just not that good. That's what inflates y'all's numbers, and you're going to find that out. Because our offense currently is ranked 28th in the country. Let's see, that means that it is going to be, as of numbers of this week, which I'll post the link for the source that I use, will be the second best offense y'all faced. The best was Georgia Tech. They're currently ranked 24th. And y'all done 14 points. And of course, because I'm not going to count the pick sixes against y'all defense for that. I'm not stupid. But still, so again, y'all played defensively, played well against Georgia Tech. You only gave up 14 points to the 24th best offense in the country. Props to y'all there. But still, the fact remains, you're just not that good. Not that good. Not as good as you're saying you are. Let's put it that way. So, there's that, and there's the fact that y'all just aren't prepared for our offense. Our offense is going to score points. Our defense is going to give up points. I'm not going to say it's going to be, 50-6 or any of that kind of nonsense. I'm not going to say we're going to drop 80 on you like certain morons did last season. You know who you are, Brazzy. So that's just it. Look for a high-scoring, kind of a shootout game, which is what figures to be. But one thing I've learned about this rivalry is the game hardly ever is what it figures to be. So I'm going to hold off on any kind of predictions, mainly because of the unpredictable nature of the game and the rivalry, and because I generally suck at predictions. We've kind of demonstrated that all season. So we're going to avoid predictions. right now, since I plan to do a couple of videos at least, because I have enough hatred for Clemson to not be able to fill into one video, I'm going to define some terms that I plan on using. One of which is a Clemsalon. It's kind of the same thing as a Clemtard, but I'm kind of avoid that term because I think it's kind of lowbrow, honestly. But Clemsalon kind of carries the same meaning. Those are the guys that are just complete morons. Brazzy. You know who you are, so I mean, there's not really a need to demonstrate what a Clemson moron fan is because there's so many of them. So there's that. There's just blind Clemson worship. That's kind of the main offense which I hold against Clemson owns. That's kind of the people that taint their perception of reality in order to whatever suits Clemson at the time. I mean, granted, part of that is just what fans do, but it goes beyond that for a lot of Clemson fans, the perception of reality. Like, for example, Clemson worship is all the smack they talked all last season about how they beat a completely healthy Georgia team. The fact that their top running back missed probably about half the game, and their top receiving threat left the game with an injury before recording a stat. That doesn't matter. See, that's what Clemson worship is. Because there was a completely healthy Georgia team. Facts be damned. That's what I'm referring to. When I talk about Clemson worship. And then there's the Clemson crits. There's a lot of those. Trying to think of an example would be the Tiger Johnny Clemson. Those are the people that argue that the fact that Clemson beat us 7 times in a row in the 1930s matters, but the fact we beat them last year is irrelevant history. That's a Clemson crit. So there's that. And another example of the Clemson crits are the people who argue that FSU beating Clemson 71% of the time and Georgia beating them 66% of the time constitutes a rivalry, but them beating us 59% of the time is domination. See, that's what a Clemson crit is. If you're going to say 59% of winning 59% of the time is domination, then it goes for when another team beats y'all more than 59% of the time too. And I mean, that's just the way it goes. You can't see things for your team one way and then completely turn it around when it doesn't work for your team. I try to avoid that. I'm probably guilty of it at some point. But, I try to see facts for what they are, whether they benefit my team or not. And, that's just the way that fans should be, at least I think. But there's a lot of Clemson crits on here that don't see it that way. So those are some terms that I just want to have understood. And so this is, first salvo of the 2-week rivalry week. Plenty of hatred for Clemson. I grew up in the 90s. Any Carolina fan can't forget about the 90s because that's all that Clemson fans want to talk about. So, we've got quite a bit of disdain for that team, the Upstate Team, as some of our fan base likes to call them. And, get more into X's and O's as the weeks go on. But nonetheless, there's an opening salvo for you. I'm looking forward to a sixth consecutive victory. Not so much going to focus on, we beat y'all 5 times in a row. For the most part, last year is irrelevant. I'll agree to that extent because the fact that we beat y'all last season or the previous 4 or any of that kind of stuff isn't going to give us points on the board. It isn't going to take things away from y'all. It isn't going to cause turnovers or any of that kind of crap. So, to a very small extent, it matters, but for the most part, it's irrelevant. It matters to the extent that the winning streak is in y'all's heads. It's in Dabo's head. And you can tell that the way he coaches against us. And you can tell that by the way y'all have a countdown clock to the game. The losing streak is in y'all's heads. It bothers y'all. It bothers Dabo. So to that extent, it matters. But for the vast, vast majority of the context, last year is irrelevant. So, I'm always going to want to beat Clemson this year, and that's about it. Streaks don't matter to me much. To the extent that they matter to me is I would like to see 8 victories in a row on this streak, just because that would take away one other thing that Clemson people like to say is important when it suits them. Because, you know, Florida State winning 11 straight doesn't matter. It's irrelevant history because that's not convenient for Clemson worship. But they like to remind us of 7 straight victories in the 1930s when none of us were alive. But, you know, that I just kind of want to take that argument away from them. So, I mean, that's really about it. That's the extent to which I think this streak matters, to me personally. But, so I'm looking forward to 6 in a row. And, I mean, that's about all there is to it in this video. Y'all take it easy. We got a lot more hate coming for y'all, Clemson Crits.